right, folks, let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Caitlin, and I'd like to welcome you to Strategies in Processing Fear and Anxiety. We, the Crown College team, are so excited to welcome you today. And again, my name is Caitlin Canest. I am a part of the Crown College online and graduate team. I actually live in Omaha, Nebraska, so it's fun to see where all of you are because some of you are a long way from Omaha today. And I serve as the director for the Crown College Omaha program. It is my privilege to lead our time together today. And so again, welcome to Strategies for Processing Fear and Anxiety. The Crown College team decided to offer this webinar because we really want to help you navigate life amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. And we want to give you practical tools that you can use as you protect your own mental and emotional health right now, and also as you seek to equip and serve your friends and your family, maybe those you're serving at church or in your workplace. Our team put this webinar together to be a combination of practical information to equip you and also actionable takeaway items that you can put into practice right away when you leave today. And so before we get started, we want to take about 1 minute to introduce you to Crown College. Some of you are familiar with who we are and some of you are not yet. And then we will dive right into our content and turn things over to our professor. For those of you not yet familiar with Crown College, we are a fully accredited Christian college. We were founded in 1916, and so we are 104 years old now. And our campus is 45 minutes west of Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we have a few folks joining us from that area. Crown College offers 3 kind of programs, ways of studying with us. And then the first one is through our traditional campus in Minnesota. Those are typically your younger students. They live on campus, they take daytime classes, they're very involved in campus life a lot of times. We also offer online bachelor's and online master's degree programs, which make it convenient for people all around the world to study with us. And one of the fun facts about that program is that a lot of those students take just one class at a time. So it's an accelerated format that makes it easier to balance work and family and school commitments with your ministry service. We also have on-location programs throughout the country. And so I have the privilege of leading Crown College Omaha, which is one of those programs. And we offer here in Omaha and in other locations throughout the US a combination program where students can take some of their classes on site and some of them online. And that's for bachelor's and master's degree programs, both. Crown College also has a number of unique partnership programs with churches and businesses across the nation. Church residency programs are some of our favorite things to partner and do because it brings a unique aspect to both college education, but also practical experience. And so it equips graduates really well from both angles. Our mission, the mission of Crown College, is to provide biblically based education for Christian leaders. And so we do it by offering convenient opportunities for students to study and then by supporting them well from the time that they initially connect with us until the time that they graduate and officially become an alum. If you would like to learn more about who we are, we would encourage you to hop online to crown.edu and read more. We also have a couple opportunities that will be coming up next week for you to learn more about studying with us. And so we'll talk more about those later in this webinar. At this point, I'm going to introduce Dr. Jim Zoff. And Dr. Zoff is the department head, the department chair for our psychology and counseling programs, including the Master of Arts in Counseling degree. So he is going to be active in the Q&A throughout this webinar. At the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. Go ahead and click on that. As long as you know where that's at, you can turn in questions to us throughout the webinar. Dr. Zoff will respond to some of those, and he will also save a few of them for Dr. Backus to speak into at the end of our time together. So Dr. Zoff, as we get started, would you share with us why studying fear and anxiety is so critically important right now? And then would you go ahead and introduce our professor?
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Fear, as we'll learn, is a natural occurrence. And as we will discuss, it's even a part of life that is expected and acceptable. However, anxiety is a prolonged mental stressor that can have serious effects on our bodies, our functioning, and our mental health. It's especially important now because we live in what is being called an unprecedented time due to coronavirus. And so many are either encountering the disabling or dysfunctional stressor in others, or possibly even experiencing it ourselves. Because of this, I'm very excited to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Troy Backus earned his MA in counseling from Grace University and his PhD in counseling education and supervision from Regent University. He began his professional counseling practice in 2002 and focuses on a holistic approach to counseling and healing. Dr. Backus and his wife, Roma Jean, by the way, I've met her. She's definitely the better half. They have a passion for serving missionaries and training others in the field of missionary care. In fact, missionary care is their full-time work right now. And we are lucky to have him as an adjunct professor when he is available. Dr. Backus has taught counseling and psychology students for Crown College, Nebraska Christian University, Creighton University, and Grace University, and recently served on staff at CityCare Counseling in Omaha, Nebraska. Students' feedback regarding Dr. Backus includes that he is excellent at getting students to relax and engage in class, and that he shares his years of experience with humor and relatability. Now, I will admit, I have heard his jokes, and I told him not to quit his day job. Crown College accepts no responsibility for any of Dr. Backus's attempts at humor. But in all seriousness, I have enjoyed getting to know Troy as a colleague and a friend, and I think you'll enjoy what he has to share with us today. Dr. Backus, thank you in advance for your time, and I'll turn it over to you.
I think, Jim, we need to have a disclaimer because some people probably logged on and saw you there and thought Jesus was going to be joining us today. And
I'm under house arrest. I can't go get my hair cut.
Oh, okay. And the beard too. It looks good. But
You're telling us that's 4 weeks worth of growth?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So Jesus will be joining us today, but just in different form. So that's good. Thank you everybody for joining. This is wonderful to see all the numbers and the people come. I've noticed there are some OMSers that are on here. That's the organization that I work for, One Mission Society Mission Organization. So it's great to see some of you who all around the world that joining. So I really hope that this can be a benefit for you during this time and just helping us to just process through, not just process, but actually manage, deal with our fear and our anxiety. I want to first talk about levels of connection, because how do we connect with people emotionally? And we have effective ways and we have more better effective ways. And so I want to talk about this first. And that is starting with the somewhat effective. Usually if we want to make contact with somebody, an email to a group or a text to a group is kind of at the lower end of that emotional connecting with people. Then we move up to the email to an individual. And the email is a good way to contact. Texting, I think, is a little bit better. It's a little bit more personable there as a way to connect. The one thing I have learned in working with people around the globe is that there are some countries who they tend to listen in, or they have ways of reading people's emails. So we have to be careful. And you want to know that if you're talking to somebody or sending an email to somebody in one of those countries, you want to make sure that you have an encryption with your email. I've noticed with people who are in those situations, and if you don't use that, that kind of starts off the relationship kind of on a bad note. So you want to make sure that we're just being considerate of the people who we're sending our emails to. And then a text to an individual would be the next level up of effective emotional connection. And one of the things that I like to do is just a habit or just something that I've started here about the last 3 or 4 years, is that going through the day, I often think of people. And maybe it's somebody I haven't thought about in a while, maybe a couple of months or so. And I have my phone, and I'm like you guys, they're right there. Grab it and just send a quick text. How long does that take? Maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you, hope you're well. Boom. To get something like that, it just means a lot. I know when I receive a message from somebody just to say, was thinking about you, praying for you, hope everything's okay. So that's something that's really easy that we can do, and it has that connection there. Another form is social media, so Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. I think the new one is TikTok, things like that. Now, the younger generation, this is one thing just considering, and who are you talking to? So the younger generation, they tend to like to use more of the instant messaging with Facebook, that kind of thing, Twitter, or the text message. So understand who it is that you're sending the text to, because some, especially like emails, there might be some people who maybe check their emails once a week, but if you respond to them on Facebook, they'll be right on that. So just know that just because you send a text or an email and they didn't respond right away doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't get it. There might be a better form of connecting with them in the written format. And then moving on up to the more effective ways. I don't know if you knew this, but on your phone, it has the capability to actually call somebody. So we don't necessarily just have to text them or email them or all that other. You can actually dial and talk to them and hear their voice. And there is something about hearing a person's voice. We just know it just helps lift us up. There is a soothing with it. It's a feel-good type thing. So calling people on the phone. And if you have text, if you've texted people, or if you're in that, like, I haven't really talked to this person in maybe a couple of weeks or whatever, I just need to call them on the phone. So much better way to connect with people. And then the next going on up is the visual and audio contact with a device like what we're doing right now. We do know that there is something about seeing somebody's face, even if it is through Zoom or things that kind of nature. There is something that helps us emotionally to feel more tied to that person if we can actually see their face. Now, I understand there are people who they feel uncomfortable with the camera with that little green light on. But again, as much as possible, try to do the face-to-face. I know some people, and I was really one of them back when started to do face-to-face talking back in 2007. It was really uncomfortable with the camera. And back then, you know, it was these huge cameras and kind of like shining in your face. But I learned that I really like that face-to-face contact. And after a while, you forget that the camera's there. And if that little light bothers you, then just get some tape and cover it up to do that, or do, you know, whatever that you can do. But as often as you can, try to do that face-to-face with people. Then, of course, the best is in person. And so when you are with somebody in person, within 3 feet, it's a little bit more private and privacy there, that private zone that we like to call. There's just a lot more connection with that. But of course, right now we're going through a time where we can't be in person, you know, with people. So what, you know, can we do? Just the other day, I was needing a Starbucks green tea frappuccino, and I hadn't had one in quite a while. And there's one that's kind of close to our house, and it's close to our church. And so what we did was we just called the family together. And I'm also here in Omaha. And so we just called the family together. And we said, hey, we're going to go to Starbucks, get something to drink, and then we'll just meet you in the parking lot of the church. And we all stayed in our cars, rolled down the windows. We could talk to each other. We couldn't touch or hug or anything like that. But you know what? It was really good to be in person with family again. So we can do those things, but still keep the social distancing going. So that was a good thing. And this will be over someday. This will be over hopefully soon, but things will change, sure. But we will be able to get back together. And one thing I'm hoping is that this teaches us a couple things. One, that how important it is when we are with people in person, but also two, that, hey, we can get together, even though we might be across the world in Scotland or Taiwan or wherever, we still can get together and we still can meet and see people's face. So I want to go through what we do, this 4-phase emotion processing and trying to process through negative emotion. Today we're going to focus on anxiety and fear, but you can use this 4-phase emotion process with any negative emotion. So let me explain that here real quick. All emotion is good. Emotions, we're created with them. They inform us of our environment, of happenings in our environment, and they inform us of happenings in relationships. So they all are good. There is no such thing really as a bad emotion, but we do have negative emotions and positive emotions. Negative emotions simply are those emotions we don't like to feel. Sadness, anger, guilt, shame, grief, all of those, disgust, those are negative emotions. We don't like feeling them, so we need to do something about them. Positive emotions, on the other hand, are the ones we do like to feel. Happy, joy, satisfaction, confidence, peace, calm. Those are all positive emotions. That's what we want to get to, and that's what this process helps us to do. So real quick, going through the process, and then I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on steps 2, 3, and 4 here. So the first thing, when an emotion is triggered, we have to identify that emotion. And with some people, this is a difficult thing. They have difficulty identifying an emotion. So today, like I said, I'm not going to get into a whole lot with identifying, but the next step is, once we identify it, then we need to make meaning of it. What is it trying to tell us? Every emotion has a purpose. It is trying to tell us something. And it is communicating that there's something, information it wants to tell us about our environment or about a relationship that we're in. And then the next step is, once we make meaning of it, once we've been in it for a little bit, we need to have a plan so we leave it, because we don't want to stay in that. I'll explain that here in just a little bit. But we don't want to stay in it, especially a negative emotion, especially and for an extended period of time. So what we need to do is we need to use reason, logic, brainstorming to reduce that emotion. So that's helpful, but we got to get to 4, because 4 is the most important part. It's that transition, that transforming of a negative emotion into the positive emotion. I want to make something very clear here. This is emotion transforming, okay? This is not emotion replacement. We're not replacing anxiety with a positive emotion, or fear with a positive. It's impossible. And we are meant to have fear. There's a purpose for it. We're meant to have anxiety. We're just not meant to stay in it for extended periods of time. That's not healthy. All right, so let's get into here. So step 2, the purpose of anxiety and fear. So this is the making meaning of it. And so once we identify it, we need to make meaning of it. And so today we're just going to focus on fear and anxiety. So fear, the purpose for fear is to tell us of a present danger, whether it's actual or whether it's perceived. And so, and the key with this is present. So, and it's also communicating to us that we have a need, and that need is to feel safe and secure. Now think about this. This is how we are created, that when fear comes on, it says, okay, you need to be in a safe place. You need to be secure. Now think about those first responders, our military, those people that they are trained to have to understand that they have this fear, but to work past that and to go into burning homes and to go into a battle zone to do that. And so they do that because they want the people inside to be safe. They want their loved ones back home to be safe. There's still that need to feel safe and secure. So fear is what we would call a core emotion. And there are about 450 some emotion words in the English language. And with fear is one of those core emotions. So if you took all those emotions, you got it down, there's about 8, 9, 10, depends on who you talk to, that are core emotions, and fear is one of those. And anxiety is part of the fear family. And so what anxiety tells us is anxiety is trying to warn us or be prepared for a future fear, something that in the future that we may be afraid of or concerned about, something like that. So to understand the difference, fear is present. So if there was a fire or something here in my house, fear would kick in and say, you need to go and be safe. So go grab your wife, get out of the house. And anxiety says there's something in the future, like let's say I have next week a driving exam that I have to do, and I have anxiety about it. Well, I need to relieve that anxiety. So I'm going to have a plan. And the best thing, because I don't like feeling the anxiety, so I'm going to relieve it by studying, by going out and practicing my driving. And then I will, hopefully the idea is to take that fear, turn it into peace, but even into competence, so that when I walk into that office and the anxiety may come back, I can go back, nope, I studied and I have the confidence and I feel good that I can pass this. So fear present, anxiety tells us about future, but we need to deal with these, the potential danger, and we need to deal with them and not block them. And this is one of the hangups in this phase. There's all kinds of hangups here with this where people get stuck, and that would be a whole nother seminar. So just know that we need to, in order to make meaning, we need to feel, we need to know what is the anxiety trying to tell us. If we try to block it, if we ignore it, if we disregard it, then it could turn into a panic, or it could turn into chronic anxiety type problems. So from this step to our next step, we want to reduce the fear. We want to reduce the fear, reduce the anxiety. And so this is the leaving it. This is the part where we have identified it, we've made meaning, we're trying to understand that, okay, I'm anxious about something, so that means I must be anxious about something that's going to happen here in the future. Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's in a week. So what do I need to do about this? Okay, so some things to increase our security and so we can feel safe. One is that we can just make a new or strange situation familiar. There was a time I remember I was invited to a Bible study in someone's home, and I didn't know anybody in the group except for the person who invited me. And the home was strange to me and everything. So walking in, I felt really awkward. It just felt, the anxiety inside me. And I remember as I sat down before the study started, I looked up in their living room and I saw a painting, and I recognized the artist immediately because I have a painting that was so similar to what they had. And I got up, looked at the painting, and for sure enough, it was the same artist. And there was something, just a nice peace, calm that came over me, just knowing that there is this familiar thing that's here in this room. So sometimes just finding something that's familiar and in a strange environment, just it will help us to lower our anxieties. Being prepared for things. Again, I mentioned about one of the things, I don't like feeling anxious about studying or for my driving test or taking the driving test, so I'm going to study for it. I'm going to practice. So just being prepared. Getting to a safe place. If you're in a situation and if you're, walking in a place in downtown and you're walking on a sidewalk and you're like, oh, let's cut through this alley because it's quicker, but it doesn't look safe. It's like, then don't do it. Just walk around the block and, just get safe, be safe. Another thing that we can do is increase our skill on whatever it is. Maybe it's something at work that you're worried about. Maybe, and so go out, study, try to increase your skill on that. Keep practicing on that. I remember when I learned how to ride a bike, and I was pretty nervous about doing it, of course, falling over, things like that. And I learned in my backyard, it's pretty flat. And what my dad did was he lowered the air in the tires. So then that way the tire was a little bit flatter and wider. So then that I could keep my balance a little bit better. And so I gained a lot of confidence by doing that. And then of course, gradually he put the air in the tire. And, but as I continued to increase the skill of riding and just continue to do that, I could go more and more. And where today, I just hop on a bike, I don't even think about it. So just increasing skill in something can also help us. But what I have found that is probably the most where people suffer the most is in anxiety is they worry too much about things that are outside of their control. And so we have to determine what is in our control and what is outside of our control. And, I don't know, let's just say something happens that's really crazy that we could never ever think of, like a worldwide pandemic, and to where that is just a lot of things are just outside of our control. And so what is it that's right now that is in your control? What is it that you can do? And so I don't know where you're at and what are the conditions and things, but for us here in Nebraska, we've for the most part, everybody's social distancing. We've stayed home. We still have some freedoms to get out and go for a walk and stay, the 6 feet apart from people. I already mentioned one earlier about just getting out and staying in your car, doing things like that. Those are things that are still in my control, and I can focus on those. And whatever the things are that are not in your control, you have to give yourself permission to say, I can't worry about that. Jesus told us that, worry about the things, be concerned about the things that are of today. Don't worry about the things that are of tomorrow. We'll take care of that. They'll come. Yeah, plan, but he really wanted us to be just in the moment, right now, right here. What are the things that are in your control? So then that takes us to the fourth phase. And I think I've learned this is really the most important, that we are trying to find that opposite emotion, that transforming the negative emotion into the positive emotion. So when you go through step 3 and you come up with a plan, like, okay, this is what I'm anxious about, that's happening. I'll go back to the example. And so my plan is I'm going to study and I'm going to practice and I'm going to relieve my anxiety that way. And so when I do that, notice yourself, notice your body. Is there another emotion that is starting to surface? And if there should be, and even if it's just small, that's okay. Hold on to that, grab that. And usually with anxiety and fear, it's peace and calm in most people tend to be the opposite positive emotion. It doesn't matter. Many times, people have other ones, but that's what I've noticed with fear and anxiety. Peace and calm, relief. And relief is that emotion to where you feel like there's a weight that's been lifted off of you. That's relief when you feel that emotion. And a lot of times too, what I've noticed is that as we continue to grow the positive emotion, then confidence as well can come up. And I feel confident, like I'm going to be okay taking this exam. And then as confidence grows, then hope grows. And then what I have learned about and just believe this, that all of the positive emotions, as we feel them, happiness, satisfaction, all of them lead to joy. And that is just a neat thing, especially as a Christian. We know that joy comes from the Spirit, and just feeling that there's just a reassurance, a confidence, and feeling safe in that peace, in that joy of just knowing that we're going to be okay. Let me emphasize one more time. Again, this is not emotion replacement. This is a transformation, emotion transforming. What we want to do is take, the anxiety is so big. What we want to do is we want to take that peace, that calm, and we want to grow it and lessen the anxiety. So it's still there, but that peace and that calm surrounds it. So then that way we're focusing on that. Some of the helps that may help with you here, like one, eating well. I have read that the purchase of comfort foods have increased since we've all been locked up. I will have to confess, I have bought some extra comfort foods. I'm addicted to ice cream, and sometimes I might eat a little bit too much, but and gained a little 1 or 2 pounds. But yeah, it is really better for us to eat healthy. It helps us, especially to stay away from depression, that sort of thing, but also just eating healthy, eating well, good foods can be a good thing for us and just help us keeping us calm. Especially sugars and caffeines can be bad. So if you have some anxieties problem, I would stay away from sugars and caffeines because those can be a stimulant and just cause more problems for you. Exercise is another form. We're stuck at home. We hear about all these on-demand type exercise things that are great. What I read one time is that people who have a gym membership tend to work out more. And I think a lot of that is due to because they're with other people and not working out necessarily by themselves. Now, for me, I work out at home, but I like to get out and I like to ride a bike. And it's just good to be out with other people, even though I may not know them or whatever. It's just good to get out. And that's the other thing too, is get outside. Go for a walk. It's good to get your heart rate going, but if you just to get up and get out of, if you're stuck at home like we are right now, needing to get out. My job requires me to work from home anyway, and so one of my habits that I've tried to get to do is either go for a walk or I hop on my bike and I'll just ride around the neighborhood for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just come back. Just getting out, getting that sun seems to be helpful. Meditation is another way that we can help lessen our anxieties. Scripture. I like to read the Psalms when I'm feeling anxious or down. Another thing that I've learned that is that's really been helpful for me. I got this book. It was a gift to me. It's called God's Promises for Every Day. And all it is, it's on different topics, but they're all scripture verses in here. I don't know how well you can see that, but they're just scripture verses. There's no commentary. There's nothing. It's just scripture verses on different topics. This, in my down times and anxious times and confused times in life, has been a real big help just to be able to go and read verses on a certain topic. So that's one thing. Just having a quiet time, getting away is good. If you enjoy being outside at night, maybe around a fire, that seems for some people to be enjoyable and calming. Prayer, of course, can be relief. And music also is a wonderful way to find a relief. There are mindfulness skills that we can use. And what mindfulness is just basically, these are just relaxation techniques. Some of them can be complex. Some of them can be just simple. I like the simple ones. And they're just relaxation techniques that help us to focus on the present and not the future. I think this is what Jesus was telling us when he said, don't worry about tomorrow. Just concern yourself with today. I think he was just trying to tell us this, you know what? There's just times where we get so anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow. We got to take time and just focus on the here and now. So real quick, I just want to show you a couple of these that I like and that I do. And I want you to participate in this and just to see, how this works for you. This first one is just being present in the moment and just getting you to this moment in time. Just like what Christ was just saying is like, just be present in this moment. And so what I want you to do is just notice your surroundings, keep your eyes open, but notice your surroundings. Are you in a room? Are you outside? If you are inside, can you see outside? Is there a window that you can see, like where I'm seeing? I can see quite a ways, and I really like to look out my window. I like having an office where I can look out and I can see the green grass and notice the blue sky or even the clouds, those kinds of things. But looking around you, is the light too, and the light coming in through the window. And where does it shine? Noticing that. So notice that. Does it hit the wall? Does it hit the floor? Also too, what is around you? What's beside you? What's on either side? What's straight ahead? What's behind you? Notice those things. Pay attention to those things. Look at the detail in those things. And there'll be times too where your mind will wander. That's okay. That's okay. Just accept that and just come back to paying attention to what's around you. Even notice the temperature. What's it feel like? Is it warm? Is it cool? Is it just right? Is there air moving? I can hear the subtle air moving from the vent, from the heater going on in the house. I can hear a little bit of that. What about smells too? Is there good smells, bad smells? That, do you like them? Do you not? Notice those things. Notice the noises. Is it quiet? Is there loud noises or soft noises, sharp, smoothing, annoying? Notice all that. Listen for that. So this is something, and it can go on, but this is something that you can do. You can be in any environment. This is something I like to do, like in an airport where it is just busy, crazy, and people are all anxious trying to get wherever they're going. And I'll just sit, if I got time, I'll just sit and I'll just look around. I like to people watch, see what kind of color clothing people are wearing, what are signs saying, whatever. And it just brings a peace to be in that moment. I'm giving myself permission to not think about the next hour or 2 hours. I'm just in that moment. Another one that I like to do, and it's just really simple, is what we call like awareness of an object. So this one, just grab an object that's close to you, that's at hand. So I'm going to grab, this is my grandson's college fund, as you can see, little piggy bank. I have to go big red. Sorry for some of you people from Oklahoma out there. But yes, the rivalry still exists. So this is a little thing that we got him, and he has already started to put his pennies in it. But just grab an object, any object, and just start to notice it. What are some things that you see? What about the surface? This is smooth for the most part. There's a little tassel the little piggy has, and that's a little bit rough, but this for the most part is smooth. There is the slot, so there is a change, and when I touch it, feel it, and there's also a plug in the bottom. Some of the other things that I'm noticing here is that, there's writing on it. It says college fund. But you know what? I haven't noticed before because I haven't paid much attention to it. It's like there's other graphics that are on here. Basketball, football, a paper, that. I noticed that, the little piggy's got nice little eyelashes, too, or whatever. So right now, I'm in this moment. I'm thinking of nothing else but this piggy bank. And I'm not even worried about my grandson's future college fund, because I know it's going to have to be a lot bigger piggy bank than this one. And the thing about this is that with the object type, what I like about it is that you can do anything. You grab a pen. Your phone is around you. And I got a phone case that has wood grain on and I'm a woodworker by hobbyist. And I love wood grain, and I can look at the back of my phone and just notice time and time again, just seeing the different grains and noticing those things. I have this with me all the time. You could take a pen, you could be on an airplane, and you could be anxious about what you're going to. Maybe you got to go to a meeting, or something like that. And you just need to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just kind of ground yourself and be in that moment. And what I like about what the object is, I could grab a pen and I can just focus on that and just be in that moment at that time and not worry about what's going to happen, and then get calm, go through the process that we just talked about, and I can have that calmness, and then I can, take a breath, breathe, and then I can get back to whatever it is that I was working on. So just these things are just things that you can do throughout the day, just in those moments. Just to get some relief from the anxiety. Some other forms that have been helpful for me and other people. There are apps out there that help with just focusing us. I like to use Luminosity because it doesn't just help me focus on that moment, but it also works out my brain for me too. And just learning to breathe slowly. When we're anxious, we tend to breathe faster. We tend to hold our breath. You may not know that. Also, that anger will do that too. But we tend to breathe more. We need to breathe more from down here in our belly and slower. And breathe in for about 4 seconds, hold that for a second, and then breathe out for about 6 seconds, and then hold that. And when you breathe out, one thing that I've learned, because it kind of forces you to breathe out slow, is to purse your lips, like you're kissing somebody. And when you do that, then it forces you to breathe out slower. So, I breathe in through. I always try to breathe in through my nose, hold it. I would hold it for 4 seconds or so, or I would breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for a second, and then I'd breathe out. It would be like that. And that just, like I said, just forces you to breathe slower. And breathing is so helpful in helping us in the moment. So also too, with, if you're, just with simple mindfulness techniques, like I said, you can go online and do a word search for that. There are videos that, you can do too. One of the things too that helped me with mindfulness or grounding thing is scripture memory. I like to have certain scripture verses that I know that are helping, that are soothing, that I can just be in that moment, and they help me to be in that moment. All right, so we'll throw it out for questions.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Backus. I will get started with a question that we spoke about just a little bit before we started the seminar, and that is, we are spending a lot of time right now talking about anxiety and its effect on us. And I wondered if you might take the approach of talking to us about what is the opposite of that? What does it look like to be not anxious? How would you describe that?
Yeah, well, like what we said, so that's that transforming emotion that, you feel peace, you feel calm. But it also, there is, the thing about it is, it's that you feel it here. It's not just like I'm convincing myself with my words that, hey, you need to be peace, you need to be at peace, you need to be calm. I actually feel it here. And that's where that state where that you're making that transformation is that you feel more peace and calm than you would, say, the anxiety that you're feeling. And then if you have a good plan with whatever it is that you're anxious about, then that will grow into confidence. So you would feel that, too.
That, as you said that, it made me think of the hymn that some of you may be too young to remember, but one of the phrases in the hymn is a peace that passeth understanding. So it goes beyond your ability to understand, but there's a sense, a feeling, an experience of peace that just doesn't even really make sense to us on a cognitive level. So one of the concerns that a lot of us have would be, if we're encountering people, or maybe even for ourselves, how do you know when a person needs actual professional help? How far do they go before you say this person should be referred on, this person should be talking with someone, maybe at this point through telehealth, to get some professional help? What's that line that you draw?
Well, I'm going to go, here, I think you can see my mouse, but people can get hung up on any one of these, especially 1, 2, and 3. Identifying one of the hangups is they just aren't able to identify. And if that's the case, they might need help in just being able to go and to have somebody that can help them to just identify. Most people can identify happy, sad, and angry. That's in them. Other times people will question like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know why I feel this way. And that's, that's okay, but they probably need some help. One of the things too is on the make meaning, they can get stuck there. One, they don't even get to that, so they block it, they stuff it. They can identify it, but they're like, that's sadness. I don't want to feel sadness because it's weak, or whatever. So I'm just going to block it. I'm going to ignore it. Well, that's not helpful, because emotions have a way of expressing themselves in other ways. They can make meaning. The other problem is they get stuck. And this is where I see a lot of people who have chronic anxiety problems, is that they know it's anxiety, but they get stuck in the make meaning part of it. They can't leave it. And so they just stay in it. And imagine that. So if you have this anxious thought and you're just constantly thinking over and over and over and ruminating on that anxious thought, and you don't have a plan to leave that, that's just going to escalate and into you know, kind of a chronic anxiety problem, or maybe even a panic disorder. So that would be one area. And then in the leaving it phase, what I've seen is that people will get to the leave it phase, but then they neglect to get to the transition phase. And the transition phase is where it sticks. And that's, we got to get to that positive emotion. We got to feel that positive emotion. They get to the leaving it, and then they kind of go back to step two. And so they just kind of cycle that way. They don't allow themselves to feel that positive emotion. I notice this a lot with people who feel shame. And that is that it's like the shame comes in and says, you're not worth that positive emotion. You can't feel that positive emotion. So you have to stay in this state, which is just not true. You know, that they can feel that positive emotion, and they can stay in that positive emotion. We want to feel those emotions. So that's just a little bit some things that I've noticed where if somebody is stuck in these, they might need a little bit more help.
Thank you. We have a question from one of the participants that says, I suspect there are times I'm reacting out of anxiety without recognizing it. What are some strategies for identifying anxiety?
So one of the things is that our body tells us too. And so if what I try to do is, like, somebody can't identify the anxiety, what is your body, what is your physical body telling you? And I don't know about you, but when I feel anxious, I feel right here in the middle of my chest. And it's like, and it almost takes my breath away. It's like, and it's just like that sudden bit of anxiety. So I think that's true for most people, but notice your body. What is your body telling you? And so that's one of the things. It's like, oh, okay, so this could be anxiety. And because my body is saying that, you know, I have this part of my body that's saying that. Like, another example would be anger. Anger tends to start down low, like in my belly, you know, and then it just, you know, and it comes up. So there's a different feeling, you know, with that. Sadness, I can feel it here too, but it's more empty compared to anxiety. So your body can help you in identifying as well. So that's, you know, one. Also two, your situation, you know, what is the situation? Is this something that I would feel anxious about? And you know, that's the other thing too, is maybe going and talking to somebody else and just saying, hey, I had this feeling, I'm not quite sure what it is. This is what was going on at the time. And all of a sudden I had this feeling. So talking to somebody else and having them help you process through that can be helpful too.
Another question that was asked was about working with children who might experience anxiety. I don't know what experience you have with children, but would you have any particular ideas or techniques that you would suggest for working with children who are experiencing anxiety?
Yeah. So the number one thing with children is modeling. We need to stay calm, even though you might feeling anxious in like a fearful situation, you know, or whatever. But model calm. They're gonna copy what you're doing. And so if you're calm, they'll stay calm. I have a grandson, and he's 4, and there's been times where I can see he's afraid of something, and I'll tell him, I said, hey, look at me. Does grandpa look scared? And on the inside, I might be a little anxious, but on the outside, I know that it's nothing to be scared about. You know, maybe it's a bug or, you know, something like that. And he looks at me, and it's like, no, and you can just see that he gets a little bit of calm, and that we're here and that he's safe. And that's the other thing too, is making sure that they're safe, that you reassure that to them. The other thing that I really want parents to do is emotion coaching. You know, coach your children in helping them to identify emotions. We get, I think a lot of children, adolescents, they get through their adolescence and they are not equipped to identify all or many emotions. So they would have what we call low EQ. And so it's like, I feel this way, so I act this way. They just kind of like they just skip the step 3 there, and they don't have a plan or whatever. So if I'm angry at you, then I have a right to hit you, or whatever, that kind of thing. So we need to coach them, help them. You're upset right now, and I get it. But that doesn't mean that just because you're angry at other people that you have to take that out on others. But it's okay to be angry, but let's deal with that anger. What are you angry about? What can we do about that? So coaching them. You're anxious right now. You look like you're afraid. So we help them identify it. Oh, it's fear. Okay, so let's do something about that. What is it? And then we coach them, through that. So we coach them to identify the emotion, and then we help them through that. And we do the same thing with positive emotions too. So I think modeling it, just reassuring that they're safe, and then coaching them in what we call emotion coaching would be good.
I love the idea of modeling, and it came up in one of our other webinars. I'll just share it with everyone. I had a client years ago who would come in with such incredible anxiety that she would literally scratch her neck, and you would see the marks down her neck. And this was happening in my office. And my response to model for her was I literally slouched down till I was practically laying down in my couch. And I would speak really slowly, really gently. And she would, because of mirror neurons, she would begin to, after a little bit, slow down herself, and the anxiety would abate. And it's not always as easy as that, but it's definitely something we do need to model for people. One of the other questions, and we just have a few more minutes, but the one other question talks about, would you say there are people with bigger emotions? You mentioned EQ, our emotional quotient. And are they more in touch with how they feel? Does this make it harder or easier to get out of the negative emotions?
So I think people with a higher EQ are going to be, it's easier to, for those people to get out of or work through the negative emotions. The other thing too, with people who have a higher EQ tend to be better with empathy, so understanding other people's emotions as well as their own. But usually people with a higher EQ is going to be able to go through this process a lot better because they understand the emotion. They understand that something's happening, the emotion is informing me of something, and that I need to do something about it. And so people with lower EQ, they're either going to stuff it, block it, or they're going to stay in it. And they don't have that process, and they don't know what to do, or whatever. So, yeah.
Caitlin, how much time do we have?
We have about 5 minutes max.
Okay, so keep taking a few more questions here. Any resources to help people identify their EQ, such as an assessment that they can take? I believe that there are online resources that people could take. They're not going to necessarily be the best psychometrically, but there are some things like that. So if you just look up, if you Google emotional quotient, it will give you some ideas of how to assess that in yourself. Here's one that says, can you speak a little more about the difference between fears and anxiety? It goes on to say, I thought some of my reactions were rooted in unresolved fears from the past, but maybe it's anxiety. So trying to differentiate between what might be a past fear and what might be present based on what's happening right now.
Yeah, so I don't know about a past fear. So like I said, fear is present oriented. So the current. So probably what is happening is that there have been some learned behaviors that is affected, and it's turned into anxiety for a future that, hey, what's happened to me in the past could happen to me in the future. And so it sounds really more of of an anxiety. It could be a fear too that, that, hey, this could happen to me right now, because I don't know what the circumstance is, but I'm just recalling some people who were abused. And so they, if, they might be a little bit jumpy in certain situations, or whatever, because of this past learned behavior, this past learned response from, a certain behavior, so that, response from a stimulus, stimulus response type stuff, going all the way back to Psych 101. Yeah, so my guess is that it's probably not quite dealing with all those emotions that have been in the past, whatever that circumstance is, and those are contributing to current fears and anxieties with that. And so, getting some help in, okay, I have these past fears, and dealing with them now in a healthy way. So what is it that's, in the past? I mean, this is gonna get pretty deep, but it would be good to probably get some help to be able to deal with that. So then, now in the future, because what's it's telling us? It's telling us I need to feel safe. And right now you're not feeling safe for whatever reason. And it may be perceived or actual. And so that's the thing is like, well, if it's perceived, let's work with that. If it's actual, then get safe, too. But that's what it's trying to tell you, is that you need to be safe. And for whatever reason, you don't feel safe. So there could be this perceived that I'm not feeling safe, but I should feel safe because I'm in a safe environment. So there's been this learned response in you that needs to be dealt with.
And I think a good point to make is that while we are distinguishing between fear and anxiety, they're not mutually exclusive. You can have both, and so you need to you'd be talking to someone about it, to be figuring that out, in order to know the best way to deal with whether the fear or the anxiety or both of them.
There are healthy levels. Like I said, so if I could, if you think of a scale, right? So 0 being calm to 10 being panic, there's healthy levels from 1 to 5 of there. And it's when it gets into this higher level, that's when it's not healthy. But like at a 1, maybe cautious, that I have a cautiousness of, about walking down this dark alley. So it's trying to tell you something. So it's not an anxiety, but it's like a little bit of anxiety, basically, which is what cautiousness would be. So there's levels. We just got to keep it in that healthy range and not let it get out of hand. If it gets too far out, if it gets up to a 10, that's a panic, and that's when the emotion is taken over, and you're no longer in charge. The emotion is.
More and more, the field of psychology and counseling are going into the notion of mind-body connection. And so I've actually put some information up in the chat area for you, and we could try to include this in the email that we send out later as well. That gives you some websites that you can visit that will help you with this idea of calming the body in order to calm the mind. So for a long time, psychologists thought that we really didn't have anything to do with thinking about the body, but in the last 50 years or so, and especially in the last 10 years, we've really come a long ways in understanding that you cannot separate how we think from how our body is responding. So that's in there. I just wanted to let people know about that. And at this point, Caitlin, I will turn it back over to you. Dr. Backus, thank you so much. Did you have?
Can I say one more thing real quick? Just on the resources and Caitlin, I think you can send these out too, but a good book, Get Out of My Head, Stop the Spiral of Toxic Thoughts by Alan. And then Max Lucado has one on Anxious for Nothing, Finding Calm in a Chaotic World. And then also too, I think, Caitlin, I did at the beginning of all COVID for our mission organization, I wrote an article on anxiety and dealing with the virus, but it can help with anything too, so we could send a link to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We will do that. We'll send a follow-up email later today that will give you the slides. I know we've had several requests for those, as well as some of these additional resources for further study if you want to dig in a little bit further on your own. For those of you who maybe want to dig more than just a little bit further and think that maybe you are called into mental health counseling, but aren't sure how to prepare for that calling, or you know you want to study counseling or study psychology, we would love to invite you to join the Crown College team next week for a couple of information sessions. These are your perfect opportunities to talk with Dr. Zoff, to talk with our enrollment counselors, and really to ask them questions about what it looks like to study with Crown, what it looks like to study in these programs, and also what the state licensure processes even look like, and what kind of licensing you might need at different levels to get to the goals you want to get to. And so the first opportunity, I'm going to drop these in the chat for you too. The first opportunity is next Tuesday at 10 a.m. This is our information session for the Master of Arts in Counseling degree, and for our Master of Arts in Pastoral Counseling and our Master of Arts in Alcohol and Drug Counseling. And there's a link in the chat now to register. If you would be an undergraduate student, if you just have a few college credits, you would actually be better to join us next Thursday at 2 p.m. and learn more about our bachelor's degree in psychology counseling, our associates in care ministries, and then also some of our undergraduate alcohol and drug counseling options. So those are good foundational steps if state licensure is your end goal. So again, if you want to register for either one of those, go ahead and do that now. The link is in the chat and it should just take you about 1 more minute, but we will go ahead and conclude our time together. Thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to join us. We would love to see you all again soon. Have a great rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekend.
Go Big Red.